Friends, I'm sorry to have to do this to you again, but he just won't stop lying, so we have to discuss it again. I truly am sorry for making you have to sit through Ben Shapiro's voice a third day in a row, but he just can't stop lying. Can't stop, won't stop. There were so many lies, so I'm gonna try to go through them quickly and see if I can even remember to keep up. He has been lying about the UAW non-fucking stop for the last week. So send this to a right-winger you know, as we debunk his lies again. I'm wearing my Ho's Mad shirt in honor of this hoe who's mad.
Then announced that he was going to go to the picket lines himself to demonstrate again full fealty to bend the knee to Shawn Fain.
Bend the knee, huh?
Joe Biden was cheered by the UAW as he arrived because why wouldn't? He works for them. He doesn't work for you, the taxpayer. Remember, the most corrupt bargain in American politics is unions electing the very people who then help negotiate rich contracts on their behalf, using the full weight and force of the federal government. It's super corrupt.
So let's take this one at a time. You'll notice that he says, bending the knee. Always pay attention to the type of language that they use when talking about working class people. They don't talk like that about their rich donors. It's rich contracts to pay workers a living wage, but fair for the CEO to make 340 times their work. All using that framing does is reveal how much contempt that they have for the working class. They're happy he came to the picket line, and why wouldn't they be? He works for them, not the taxpayer. It's such a corrupt bargain. This little pipsqueak frames everything from the perspective of a plutocrat. Why is it, he should answer this, why is it a corrupt bargain for a president to support unions, but it's not a corrupt bargain for them to support big corporations, to have their cabinets filled with lobbyists and ex-CEOs, to have all of Congress doing lobbying on behalf of corporations, to have those same lobbyists for the big corporations writing the legislation? Because don't get it twisted. You think Congress writes their own legislation? No, the lobbyists write the legislation to make sure that it's business friendly. That's not corrupt. That's not corrupt. But supporting the unions is so corrupt. Why does he think it's corrupt? Because he hates working class people. But the taxpayer. Whenever plutocrats are trying to turn the regular everyday American against working class people, they always pull out the old, you the taxpayer. They don't give a fuck about you, the taxpayer. If they cared about you, the taxpayer, they wouldn't have passed that tax cut for the rich in 2017 under Republican control. If they cared about you, the taxpayer, they wouldn't be taking so much of your fucking paycheck to make sure that the military-industrial complex keeps getting to pay off their owners. If they cared about the taxpayer, then they would be upset about the fact that corporations keep price gouging people and creating things like greedflation in order to make groceries really unaffordable for Americans. But they don't care about the taxpayer. They just use that as a cudgel in order to scare regular everyday Americans to think that if unions get decent wages, that somehow it's going to come at the cost of the taxpayer when they get paid by the corporation, okay? They're not public sector. But Ben doesn't tell you that. Why? Because he's a goddamn liar. Oh my God. So private unions and collective bargaining, that's corrupt. Corporations owning our entire government and being the one to write our laws, not corrupt.
To every union in the United States that if they strike, he's going to stand on their side against their employer in the middle of an inflationary wage price spiral. This is totally crazy. Okay, so the United Auto Workers are currently in the middle of a strike against two of the big three. Now, I remind you that the demands that are currently being made by the UAW are totally insane. And what they actually want is crazy. They want a 36% pay increase across a 4-year contract. They also would like annual cost of living adjustments, which means an automatic raise. They also want their benefits plans moved from defined payments plans to defined benefits plans. So instead of you getting back sort of what you pay in plus a percentage, they want a defined benefits plan, which is what bankrupted the automakers in the first place. They also want a 32-hour work week, and everything above 32 hours paid as overtime, which is totally crazy. So these are nuts. They also want the big three to scrap their 2-tiered wage structure. Under that current system, top-tier workers, according to CBS News, earn an average of $33 an hour. Those hired after 2007 are classified as lower tier and earn about $17 an hour. The UAW says that they just want to get rid of that, so everyone gets paid $33 an hour.
The horror.
So they want the defined pension, they want substantial pay raises, they want more paid time off, and they want a 4-day work week. 32 hours for 40 hours of pay, which is nuts. They also want a right to strike over plant closings. So
yeah.
if the plants close because the profitability goes away,
They want to raise the wages during an inflationary period. Well, why don't you tell the corporations to stop price gouging and to stop ripping people off and, pay their taxes? Then maybe that won't be a problem. And weird how they're really concerned about the idea of them getting raises during an inflationary period, but they're not concerned about the CEOs getting a raise during an inflationary period. The CEOs got a 36% raise over the last 4 years, so why can't they? Why is it dangerous when the workers get a raise, but it's not when the multi-millionaire CEOs get raises? How about what's good for the goose is good for the gander, bitch? Then he goes on to lie about the pension plan, and then he trashes on the fact that they want to end the two-tiered wage system, a promise that was made to the workers in 2007-8 that said that if they went along with the cuts, they would eventually end that, and then they didn't. But I think my favorite was when he goes, they also want cost of living adjustments. How motherfucking out of touch and elitist do you have to be to think that in a time that we are living in where wages have not kept up with inflation since the 70s, that it's somehow unreasonable and crazy and wild that the workers want their wages to keep up with inflation when the CEOs and the bosses' compensation has not only kept up with inflation, it's far exceeded it. But again, the reason why he uses those adjectives to describe things that are totally reasonable is because he fucking hates workers.
and picketing with the UAW saying, we agree with you on your demands. You want inflation? You want stagnation? This is the way you get inflation and stagnation, is you have these unions that are striking in the middle of an inflationary economy to get higher wages and higher benefits, driving up prices at a time when, again, people can't even pay the prices they currently have, which is going to lead to less demand, which is going to lead to loss of jobs, which is going to lead to stagnation, and then you're going to get true stagflation.
He's so wrong, and yet he speaks with such confidence and authority. Like, everything he just said there is wrong. No, actually, that's not what causes inflation. And for the millionth time, if raising their wages causes inflation, then why doesn't the CEOs making millions and millions and millions of dollars a year and getting a raise of 40% over 4 years, that doesn't cause inflation? Come on, right wing, explain to me why giving the workers a raise causes inflation, but stuffing the pockets of the CEOs and the shareholders does not.
Joe Biden can take sides with the UAW because he's bringing manufacturing jobs back to America. That's one of the big lies that Joe Biden tells.
One of the great lies, Why don't you explain this, Chad?
It turns out the manufacturing jobs have not been wildly coming back to the United States under either Trump or under Joe Biden. And the reason for that is because...
No, don't say it. I got it. You're going to say it's labor.
Partially union contracts. It turns out it's really expensive to do labor.
It's only 5%. The lies!
Okay, well, if they had earned it, then presumably they would have been able to negotiate this without striking and bring in the president of the United States as the pressure cooker for the big car companies. By the way, here's how this works.
Did you hear the disdain for the workers in that little twerp's voice as he said that? Really? You deserved what you've earned, huh? Well, presumably if you had, you wouldn't be having to strike and picket and you'd come to negotiate. That's why they're striking, you fucking idiot. That is literally what the strike is about. They are striking because the companies are refusing to negotiate with them in good faith.
Of the United States. He's wearing a UAW hat. So it's egregious stuff. It's really quite disgusting.
Look at him fucking clutching his pearls. It's egregious. It's egregious. It's egregious that he's wearing a UAW hat. Have you ever seen one of these motherfuckers call egregious the type of greed that we see in this country? That we have children living in poverty that can't eat, or seniors that can't afford their medication. Have you ever seen them get that passionate? It's egregious. It's amazing. It's amazing. Not passionate about the amount of people we have sleeping on the street or the fact that people can't afford healthcare. That's not egregious. What's egregious and driving his passions is the president standing up for workers. Unfucking real.